I always thought peace had a sound. The slow creak of my wooden bridge, the splash of trout, and the wind brushing through pine. For 15 years, that little bridge carried nothing heavier than my pickup and a few neighborhood kids on bikes. Then one morning came a new sound, the grinding roar of a cement truck, and behind the wheel, HOA President Karen waving like she owned the place. By the time I stepped outside, the bridge was trembling, mud swirling below, and my blood boiling. When I told her she was trespassing, she smirked. "Then maybe you should build a stronger bridge, Mike." That's when I knew it wasn't about concrete. It was about control. 15 years ago, when I signed the deed for this parcel, I built that bridge with Miguel and a rented post-pounder. We measured the span, bored the pilings, laid beams, and decked it with kiln-dried planks I sealed by hand while my golden retriever Scout watched from the bank. It wasn't a trophy. It was a promise, a way home without asking anyone's permission. When the HOA formed 2 years ago, I didn't object. I even paid the first $50 assessment. But boards grow like ivy, slow, polite, and choking if you let them. Karen got herself elected president, the way a thunderstorm elects itself a problem, suddenly and everywhere. Her first letter said, "Front setbacks must remain clear of non-compliant structures." The attached photo showed my canoe rack 20 feet inside my line. I wrote back with my survey and a polite note. She replied with a smiley face and, "Let's discuss at the next meeting." At the meeting, she brought a cheap map with the creek drawn like a cartoon snake. "Both approaches provide access to community amenities," she said. I held up my county-stamped survey. "The West Bank lies entirely within my property. The county easement stops 50 feet up the gravel lane." Karen smiled, that toddler patronizing smile. "We'll take this under advisement." HOA speak for, "We'll do what we want." 2 weeks later, a cement truck rattled across my bridge toward a future tennis complex that had more funding than votes. I moved fast, posted a reflective sign, "Private bridge, 5-ton limit, trespassers will be prosecuted." Then I added a chain and called Karen. "You're trespassing," I said. "We're improving the neighborhood," she answered. Cooperation would go a long way. "Cooperation happens between equals," I said. By lunch, the chain was cut, and a pastel notice hung on my post. Non-compliance. Unauthorized device. Remove within 24 hours or be fined. Neighbors chose sides like they were picking weather forecasts. Hannah texted, "I'm with you." Darren posted, "Bridges are meant to be crossed." Miguel brought coffee. "They're bold," he said. "They're bored," I said. At the next meeting, Karen arranged chairs in a circle, a trick people use when they plan to steamroll you but want it to look friendly. Slides projected behind her. Community Access Plan Phase 1. I waited until she finished quoting landscaping policies, then placed my folder on the table. Deed, recorded plat, GIS printout, and a county letter confirming the easement stopped 50 feet from the creek. She smiled wider. "We'll have council review. Construction continues." That night I inspected the bridge. Everything solid. The next morning, the second truck came at dawn. I stepped onto the deck, hand raised. "You're over the limit," I said. Karen rolled down her window. "You're obstructing progress." "The sign says 5 tons, I said. "You're 3 times that." "That sign wasn't approved by the board," she said. "The bridge wasn't either." The truck roared forward. A plank cracked. Not failure, a warning. So I put up an uglier sign and trail cameras. The third truck came at noon. I didn't wave or block it. I just watched physics write its own complaint letter. The decking bowed, guardrails groaned, and when Karen posted another pink final warning, I photographed her taping it up. Nails, bracelet, smile full of arrogance. That evening, Hannah brought cobbler and gossip. "They said you blocked an ambulance last year," she whispered. "Funny," I said. "I built it wide enough for one." She looked at the cracked plank. "You gonna do something?" "Oh, I am," I said. The next morning, Miguel showed up. "Heard you've got a traffic problem." "More like a weight problem." We studied the bridge. He tapped a beam. "Still solid. Yeah, I said. Built it for life, not egos. We went to my garage. Remember the mid-span reinforcement? I asked. He traced the line. Dual plate girders rated for 15 tons. If I remove these bolts, I said, load shifts to the outer beams. Still safe for light traffic, but anything heavier. He nodded. You're not planning to kill anyone, right? Just let gravity enforce the law. That afternoon, we replaced the plates with shear pins. Safe for 5 tons, a warning for 12. We tested it with my truck. Perfect. Cameras in place, everything looked untouched. 2 days later, Karen returned with another truck. It crawled onto the bridge, boards flexing, and when it hit the center, the pins bent just enough. The truck sagged, then recovered. Karen shouted, but the bridge held. Not yet, I murmured. 2 mornings later came the big pour. 3 trucks, Karen leading like a parade marshal. The first crossed fine. The second hit midspan, and the sound changed. Wooden moan, then a metallic snap. The truck's front wheels dropped, drum tilting, cement spilling into the creek. Karen screamed, more rage than pain. "You're done, Mike," she yelled. A police cruiser pulled up. The officer surveyed the scene. Truck stuck, bridge intact, sign visible. "Ma'am," he said, "this is private property." "He's within his rights." Karen sputtered. "But it's community. Do you have proof?" Silence. I showed the video. "Overweight vehicle, warning sign visible?" The officer nodded. "Seems clear to me." Karen slipped into the creek trying to grab her clipboard. Pride always weighs more than cement. The crowd laughed. The bridge held, scarred but triumphant. That night I watched the footage frame by frame. Art by sundown, Karen filed a complaint and blasted emails accusing me of endangerment. I poured a drink and smiled. She had no idea this was just beginning. The next morning, 2 drones hovered over my property, both with HOA stickers. I waved my coffee at them. "Make sure you get my good side." Miguel arrived grinning. "Your bridge is trending." Sure enough, the video, HOA President's cement truck sinks, had gone viral. Karen mid-scream, clipboard flailing. "At least she finally built something viral," I said. By noon came 2 notices, one accusing me of endangerment, another from Karen herself, written in Comic Sans. She'd CC'd the sheriff, county inspector, and garden club. I pinned it to the fridge. That afternoon, Karen arrived with 2 security officers. "You've destroyed community property," she barked. "Funny," I said. "Did the HOA pay for this bridge?" "You've endangered residents," she said. "Your trucks endangered themselves," I replied. "You tampered with it." "Lady, he built it," Miguel muttered. "The board fines you $25,000, she shouted. "For damage to my property? As president, I can assess penalties." "Then maybe fine yourself for flooding the creek," I said. Even her guard smirked. That night, the video hit 100,000 views. Comments flooded in. Classic HOA overreach. Gravity 1, bureaucracy 0. Someone edited it with dramatic music. Karen turned her HOA Facebook into propaganda. "Dangerous structure collapsed," she wrote. I commented, "Correction, structure held. Truck collapsed." 500 likes in an hour. The next day, the county inspector came by. "HOA says you built this without a permit." I handed him my papers. He nodded. "Looks good." Karen stormed down the lane. "What are you doing here?" "Inspection," he said. "Bridge is up to code." "That's impossible," she snapped. He tapped the rail. "Looks solid." She sputtered, then stormed off. "For what it's worth," he said. "You're fine legally." "Tighter than her tennis budget," I replied. The story hit local TV. Cement truck meets its match in small-town bridge dispute. When the reporter asked, "Was this sabotage?" I said, "Physics doesn't take sides. It enforces rules." Karen became a meme. Cement Karen. Even her board began cracking. Thomas, a retired lawyer, stopped by. "You're not the villain. Half the neighborhood's tired of her." "She'll destroy herself," I said. Karen called an emergency meeting. "Infrastructure collapse." She showed the video and shouted. "He weakened a community bridge," I stood. "Would you like to see the deed?" I handed it to her. Easement ends 50 feet before the creek. You've been trespassing. Gasps. Wait, someone asked. So the HOA's been using his bridge illegally? Thomas said, completely relevant. The meeting fell into chaos. Karen slammed her clipboard. This meeting is adjourned. Outside, Miguel said, she's unraveling. Let her, I said. Some people need their own rope. 2 days later came a thick envelope with a gold HOA seal. A lawsuit for property destruction, emotional distress, and interference. She wanted $250,000. Miguel whistled. Looks expensive. I'm not fighting, I said. I'm documenting. Soon, HOA contractors snapped pictures, drones buzzed, and someone even measured my mailbox. Karen strutted like a peacock with a clipboard. That evening, the news returned. Karen said, he put the community in danger. Then my clip played, if you ignore the sign, the problem isn't the bridge. Guess who they believed? Thomas emailed everyone the HOA charter showing funds couldn't cover private lawsuits. If Karen wants to sue, she does it at her own expense. The next day, her emails stopped. I imagined her surrounded by unpaid bills, but she wasn't done. Flyers appeared with my photo, danger to community safety. I laughed and stapled my own version beside each one. Wanted, common sense, last seen at HOA meeting. The sheriff came by. Just making sure things are safe. Safer than a cement truck, I said. County says you're in the clear. Just keep peace. Trying, I said. Peace keeps driving 12 tons. He laughed and left. Then came the official summons. Karen had hired a downtown firm. My lawyer, Lisa Barrett, flipped through my evidence and smiled. She doesn't have a case. You've got signs, surveys, and proof. She's not trying to win, I said. She's trying to exhaust me. Then let's make her pay for it. But she kept pushing. HOA contractors appeared snapping pictures of my bridge from every angle. A county drone hovered. Someone even measured my mailbox. Karen strutted around with a folder labeled evidence. Every time she saw me, she smiled that brittle politician smile that meant she'd already written my obituary. I started wearing sunglasses so I could smirk without her seeing. By Friday, the story hit local TV again. A serious anchor in a gray suit said, "New developments in the HOA bridge dispute." The county inspector stepped in the lane, flipped through my folder and said, "Looks like this was built to code." Karen sputtered disbelief. The clip ran on the 6 o'clock news. People loved a clear script. Thomas circulated the HOA charter showing funds couldn't be used for private lawsuits. If Karen wants to sue, she does it at her own expense, he wrote. The next day, her email stopped. I pictured her at her kitchen table surrounded by bills. But she wasn't done. Flyers printed with my face. Danger to community safety. I laughed and stapled my own next to each. Wanted. Common sense. Last seen at HOA meeting. The sheriff swung by, a man in jeans and a baseball cap. He leaned on his truck and said, "Just making sure things are safe." "Safer than a cement truck," I said. "County shows the bridge is yours. No easement, no shared access. Keep the peace," I tried. But peace kept driving 12 tons. When the summons arrived, Karen had hired Hamilton and Wade LLP, slick and expensive. I met my lawyer, Lisa Barrett, who looked at my binder like a chess player seeing checkmate 3 moves ahead. "She doesn't have a case," she said. "You have signs, surveys, video, and county records. She's hoping to exhaust you." "Let her," I said. "Then we'll make her pay." She smiled. The weeks leading to the hearing were a blur of small humiliations and quiet preparation. Karen turned every meeting into a drama. She called an emergency infrastructure session and showed the video as proof of my malice. I stood and handed her my deed. Page 3, Section 4. Private easement ends 50 feet before the creek, I said. The room erupted. Neighbors muttered. Someone asked, "So we've been using his bridge illegally?" Faces shifted. Opinions changed. Karen fumed and stormed out. Miguel muttered from the back, "She picked the wrong man to bully." The county inspector arrived and flipped through my binder. "Looks good to me," he said. Karen screeched disbelief. The inspector shrugged and left. That clip helped. The local news ran it as a morality play. small-town bureaucracy versus stubborn homeowner. People loved a clear script. Then the HOA filed suit. I got the summons and read it with a coffee mug in my hand. Emotional distress, property destruction, $250,000 in damages. Miguel whistled. You going to fight? Yes, I said, sounding more sure than I felt. But quietly. Lisa counseled patience. She wants headlines. Keep your records. Don't engage online. That last one was hard. The memes were irresistible. Drones hovered closer, and once a man in a reflective vest poked around my fence with a clipboard. I installed lights, another camera aimed at the HOA office. If they wanted a show, I'd give them transparency. The hearing day turned the courthouse into a stage. Reporters clustered by the doors. HOA members filled benches. Karen arrived in a red blazer, clutching her thick binder like a lifeline. Her lawyer, slick and rehearsed, stood and presented his opening like a prosecutor in a movie. This defendant sabotaged a public structure, endangering lives, he said. He clicked to a photo of the tilted cement truck. Karen's eyes shone with righteous fury. Lisa stood and laid out the case simply. This isn't negligence, she said. It's entitlement. Mr. Carter built, owns, and maintains a private bridge on his land. The HOA repeatedly ignored posted signs and trespassed. We have video, surveys, and county records. The judge's eyebrow lifted. The courtroom hummed with the sound of the tide shifting. Karen testified, melodramatic and indignant. He sabotaged the bridge, she declared. Lisa asked how many times HOA vehicles crossed. 10 or 12, Lisa produced weight records. The trucks were heavy, well over 5 tons. Miguel, who'd helped build the bridge, described the over-engineering, dual plate girders, conservative ratings, and honest work. The defense showed the original construction approvals, county stamps, and a letter from the road commission confirming the easement ended at the gravel. Karen's case frayed. Her lawyer objected, scrambled, accused, but every document we produced answered his charge. He tried to blame me for the spill. The judge watched video, trucks crossing, the pin snapping, the drum tilting, cement sluicing into the creek. Someone snorted. The gallery couldn't hold back. Then Lisa put up the clincher, the original HOA map. We showed before and after versions. The revised map had mysteriously moved our property line over my land. The treasurer had emailed me a copy of the pre-edited map. It was obvious forgery. The judge's face hardened. This boundary shift is illegal, he said. I'm referring this for review of potential document tampering. Karen's color left her face. Her lawyer slumped. By late afternoon, the judge dismissed Karen's claims with prejudice and, private theatrics aside, found cause to investigate the altered maps. We left the courtroom with reporters in our wake. I didn't gloat. The look on Karen's face was payment enough. But the story didn't end there. At a hastily called HOA meeting, with the court's dismissal ringing in the room, I revealed my final piece, a federal permit from the Department of Transportation, authorizing a private access crossing and explicitly excluding the creek from HOA oversight. The room went quiet as if someone had turned down a volume knob. Karen's defenses crumbled as neighbors realized funds had been diverted and maps edited. Thomas moved to remove her. The vote passed. She stormed out, more evidence surfaced. Thomas quietly produced bank records showing $40,000 diverted from maintenance funds to pay legal fees and unexplained consulting. The numbers looked like shavings off a log, small at first. Then suddenly the trunk was hollow. The board could no longer claim ignorance. They had to act. A motion passed to restore funds and hold an external audit. No one wanted faces of humiliation in their own homes, but order restored itself like a muscle remembering its place. Karen left in a storm and took her theatrical fury with her. She filed appeals, papers, motions, the usual litany, but the county review had tipped the scales. Someone had altered maps and the investigation widened. In small communities, reputations are woven tightly. Once a thread snaps, it pulls others. People stopped taking her calls. The days after the trial felt slower, the kind of slow that comes from having spent energy and finding the well still full. Potlucks returned. People started waving. The tennis court project quietly died, budgets re-examined, contractors unpaid, hopes reined in. The HOA board sent a formal apology. A small check for $1,000 arrived with the letter. I framed it and hung it in the hallway like a joke that people would look at and then laugh. A token, Hannah said. More theater than recompense. But the legal world is stubborn. Karen's lawyers filed motions, demanded records, tried to paint her as a martyr. Friends warned me the fight might drag into appeals and counterclaims. Lisa advised carefully. Let them spend. Every motion costs them, and the map forgery is a slow poison. The law is not quick, but it accumulates. And accumulate it did. The more we pushed, the more evidence came to light. Emails with odd timestamps, a contractor who admitted being paid extra for expedited mapping, and bank transfers that couldn't be explained away. The county's own investigators found anomalies. It wasn't dramatic like a movie reveal. It was a series of small confirmations that, together, looked like a trail. The investigators were thorough and bureaucratic, paper, photocopies, signatures. But the weight of 100 stamped pages was heavy. At community meetings, people started telling their own stories of petty enforcement, fines for bird feeders, reprimands over mailbox flags, notes about paint colors. Those stories turned from amusement into concern. The board had been using its power for control, not care. The narrative shifted, and Karen's base, which was mostly a small group of fervent volunteers, began to thin. One afternoon, I sat on the porch and watched a drone circle once, then vanish. A neighbor pulled up on a bicycle and tossed me a cold soda. Feels different now, she said. You kept your head, she added. You didn't freak out online. It was a compliment and a rebuke all at once. The truth is, it's hard not to rage. Rage can feel like action, but it often leaves little behind but heat. Proof leaves a trail. The county's determination to review the altered documents led to formal referrals. Karen was called in for questioning. She became defensive, then frantic. At a hearing about the altered maps, the treasurer testified under oath that he had provided the original file to me weeks before it was exposed. The treasurer's testimony was a small, quiet thing, but in that silence lay a larger confession. The community had been misled. Karen's appeal floundered. Without clean papers and with an investigation open into document tampering, her options narrowed. She withdrew most of her motions, focusing on personal slights and PR. The HOA reconstituted under new leadership and elected a board that, to my relief, actually read bylaws before acting. They reached out. An apology email circulated. People who'd once taken her side confessed quietly to me in grocery store aisles and at the gas station. We didn't realize, they'd say, eyes downcast. Meanwhile, life returned to the small rhythms. Miguel tinkered with his truck, Scout chased a squirrel, and I fixed a squeaky hinge on the porch. The bridge needed work. I replaced the warped boards, tightened bolts, and resealed the planks. Miguel helped, humming as he worked. Poetic justice, he said as he handed me a torque wrench. Save the sermon for church, I replied. The neighborhood began to change in small ways. Meetings became predictable and dull in the best sense. People argued about bake sale times and potluck recipes rather than property lines. The drones disappeared. There was no dramatic decree wiping the slate clean, no parade, only the steady rebuilding of trust. One evening, a neighbor, an older man named George, whom I'd never met, knocked and asked if he could tell me a story. He'd been on the street for 40 years. His story was quiet, how the subdivision used to be, the slow changes, the small compromises. He talked about how power creeps into good intentions and the way a title can be used as armor. You're not the only one who fought, he said. You just had the patience to show the receipts. I kept the framed check on the wall and a small plaque my sister had given me. Build better bridges, people stopped mentioning. Karen's name in casual conversation, but her shadow lingered like a memory. Sometimes that's enough to remind folks to be kinder. The county's review culminated in a formal reprimand for falsified HOA documents. Some board members were sanctioned. A couple resigned amidst the scrutiny. The paperwork arrived like slow rain, official letters, fines, and a mandate to return diverted funds. It wasn't theatrical justice. It was administrative, precise, and consequential. The garden club got its money back. The failed tennis project was reevaluated and quietly shelved. For me, the victory felt textured, equal parts relief, weariness, and quiet satisfaction. In the weeks after the final rulings, people stopped gaping at the bridge and started crossing it again, carefully, with bags of groceries and children in tow. The boards creaked in a familiar way, like old friends stretching back into conversation. One night I walked across alone. The moon tossed silver across the creek. The bridge hummed under my boots. I paused halfway, leaned on the railing, and listened to the creek count off its small time. The legal papers sat in a drawer, duplicates filed, and a single copy in Lisa's office, should anything try to reanimate. Proof, I thought, is an odd kind of comfort. It doesn't roar. It waits. When the short viral clip hit 2 million views, strangers sent messages. "You stood up to bureaucracy," one wrote. "You proved patience beats fury," another said. Someone gifted me a mug, Bridge Defender. Merch popped up. A t-shirt with a cartoon bridge and the slogan, "Gravity 1, Bureaucracy 0. I didn't profit from it, but it made me laugh. We had a small celebration at the community hall. They called it a reconciliation potluck and invited everyone. People brought foods and apologies. Board members who'd pushed Karen's plans wrote letters of regret. She didn't attend. I didn't expect her to. The room felt light in a way that had nothing to do with the food. It had to do with the daily act of neighbors choosing to be neighborly again. And me? I kept walking across the bridge. I fixed a squeak here and there, watched Scout nap on the bank, and kept a folder in my truck with every stamped permit and signed survey. When a kid from down the road came by and asked if he could fish from the bank, I handed him a stick and a grin. "Be careful," I said, "and don't be afraid to measure the line." Sometimes I think about Karen, not with malice, but with a kind of clinical curiosity. How does one person come to believe that authority is a license to rewrite other people's lives? Power, when misapplied, does strange things. But communities have gravity too. They pull toward fairness, toward accountability. It's not instantaneous, and it takes time and documentation. It takes people willing to show up and a good lawyer who knows how to read a map. If you ever are tempted to face down a petty tyrant, remember this: document. Keep your calm. Build literal and figurative bridges that hold. Let the law and a patient creek do the rest. It isn't as satisfying as a dramatic speech, but it lasts. And if you ever cross that line, metaphorically or in wood and iron, remember that a well-built bridge speaks for itself. The end.